Hello, everyone. I'm Pamela Brewer, welcoming you to this edition of M.E.S.H. M.E.S.H is the place where your mental, emotional, and social health is always on the agenda. And once again, I remind you that it is not your job to be a mind reader, nor is it reasonable for you to expect others to read your mind. That being said, I'm not going to ask you to read my mind about our next guest. I'm actually going to bring her up and say hello to Tahara DeBarrows. Tahara, welcome to M.E.S.H.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Now, Tahara, you are a licensed marriage and family therapist. What does that mean?
Yes, so that really means that I like to say we have a lot of clinical background. So I'm able to work with families, individuals, couples, children, right? So very well-rounded therapist. A lot of different models of therapy we have to learn. But I feel like I'm just very well equipped as an LMFT to kind of deal with anything.
And your base of operation, you are in Connecticut. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes. So
Okay.
I have a group practice called A Journey to Healing Counseling. We're located in Connecticut. We have an office in Middletown, Connecticut. We're really about 95% virtual, I'll be honest. A lot of people like virtual therapy. I'm
Yeah.
also licensed in Florida as well as a telehealth license. So that's just,
Okay.
just telehealth therapy for Florida.
Yeah, I'm now actually 100% virtual. I get it.
Okay. Yeah.
Don't have to worry about getting a parking spot. It's fabulous.
Right.
Tahara, I ask you, you have many areas of expertise. You deal with substance abuse issues, you deal with trauma, you deal with lots of different kinds of experiences that people go through. But I have asked you today to really help us understand alexithymia.
Yes.
What is that?
Yes, so basically, alexithymia is a personality trait where it's also called emotional blindness, where you have issues and kind of challenges with identifying and naming your emotions. Layman's terms, really, that's really what it is. It's not a mental health disorder, it's really just an emotional processing kind of issue.
You have said that so many times people don't want to. I think it's less true now than it used to be, but so many times people actually really hesitate to see a therapist because they think it means they're crazy.
Yes.
So let's say you think you're crazy, or you've even got somebody around you who says you never know how you're feeling, you don't want to talk about your feelings, you're crazy, go see a therapist. Probably the
Right.
worst thing to say because they're definitely not going then. But what's it? I mean, when we think about crazy, can you just say a little bit about that? And is it, let me let you do that. Just what does it mean to be crazy? Is that a thing?
I know that word is used so much, right, in our day to day, and it can mean a lot of different things. Sometimes it's comedy, playfully, but it can be hurtful too for some people. Seeking therapy is so important. We go to medical doctors for physical symptoms, physical, issues that we have. What's the difference with seeing a therapist, a psychiatrist, a psychologist for mental health issues? It's the same thing. So I would tell people try not to use the word crazy. Sometimes people just have different challenges, right? It doesn't always have to be very serious. Sometimes people see me because they have relationship issues, job issues,
Right.
parenting issues, right? It doesn't always have to be schizophrenia, bipolar, those more serious diagnoses.
So getting back to alexithymia, you defined it essentially as emotionally blind. So or
Mm-hmm.
emotional blindness. So that doesn't mean that you're quote unquote crazy, whatever that means. But you're also saying that it's a personality trait. You're not even saying that it's a mental disorder. It's not a diagnosable disorder. Say more about that.
Yeah, so it's found usually with individuals who have a history of trauma, anxiety, intense distress, depression. A lot of times, people who have neurodivergence, autism, ADHD, we see emotional blindness or alexithymia with those individuals. Again, it's a personality trait. It's something that can be you can practice on being able to state your feelings. I guess we could like talk about more in depth what that looks like. I can give you some skills for individuals to use or therapists as well who are listening to kind of help individuals with describing and naming their emotions. But basically, that's all it is. It's just having a difficulty with that.
So I do want you to give us an example of what emotional blindness might look like, but you've also just used a term that I'm not sure everyone is familiar with, neurodivergent. What does that mean?
So neurodivergence is basically when you have some difficulty with social aspects of interacting with other people. And again, it's a spectrum, so it looks different. It looks different in individuals, really. But it can look like emotional blindness, where someone might be more logical in their thinking, harder for them to understand and grasp and identify others' emotions, and also their selves. So really, these individuals, think differently, but a lot of them have superpowers. I'll say I have ADHD, and I really use that as a superpower for me to be able to do all the different things that I do with writing and CE trainings and being a therapist, being a supervisor. So it could really be a superpower for individuals.
So thank you for that.
Mhm.
So let's talk about what emotional blindness might look like. Give us some
Sure. Yes.
examples.
Yeah, so let's say someone is in a relationship, an intimate relationship with someone, emotional blindness can look like a lot of conflict where I'm telling you how I feel about something and I'm asking you, hey, how do you feel about this? And that person might be like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm feeling, or I'm not feeling any feelings, but they are feeling feelings. They just can't identify it. Maybe it's coming up in physical sensations like muscle tension, heart racing. Um, because they're not able in that moment to kind of discuss, what they're feeling. Let's see, a parent, sometimes people who have emotional blindness or alexithymia, as a parent, their parenting style can come off more logical. Maybe it's harder for them to identify emotions in their children. And that can also lead to the child also maybe developing alexithymia as well, right? Because not being in that home where talking about emotions is brought up.
So if you're dealing with someone who has alexithymia, it, once that's in their sort of wheelhouse, if you will, of how they interact with the world, then does it stay? I mean, once that's your experience, is that always your experience? Can you ever do anything any differently?
Right. So there is hope, right? And so that can look like seeking therapy. That's one where someone can use something like cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. That's something that I use a lot with my clients because it really helps break down. Let's say something happens, you have a thought, you have an emotion, and we sometimes use emotional wheels. If you feel like your vocabulary for emotions is not there, then we can use that.
When you say emotional wheels, what's that?
Yes, so you can look that up on Google online. Basically, they have different ones so with some of the alexithymia, I would suggest starting small because these emotional wheels can have like 50 different emotions on them. So let's start with like 6 to 8, right? The simple ones. It's okay, right? It might look like it's for a child, but it's for everyone, right? It's okay to kind of say, I don't have the emotional vocabulary. I can pull up an emotional wheel for a client, or tell someone that they could do that when they're with someone and they want to discuss their feelings, but they don't have the words. So that's basically what an emotional wheel is.
So one can actually go to the University of Google and look
Yeah,
up an
everyone.
emotional wheel and get lots of different options. Somebody
Yes.
who is dealing with emotional blindness, do they know?
Hmm. I think that they probably do. Maybe they can't name it again, right? But they probably do. They probably just see a lot of difficulty in why do other people feel feelings and are able to describe them and identify them, but I can't. So
Gotcha.
sometimes maybe they will be able to see like I'm having difficulty in my personal relationships or my intimate relationships with just discussing feelings. Why? Why is that coming up?
So they may, in fact, know that they're having these difficulties, but when that person says to the other person, well, I don't know how I'm feeling, they're not trying to run away from the conversation. They really don't know how they're feeling.
Right, right. And because it's like a personality trait, you might just say like this is just a part of me. This is who I am. But again, it's a skill. Identifying emotions could be a skill, meaning that it can be taught, it can be learned, it can be mastered to to a degree, right? So
So part of what I'm hearing you say is that people learn how to be emotionally blind. You're not born with that. Is that a
exactly.
fair statement?
Yes, exactly. As I stated before, when there's a parent who has that emotional blindness, you're kind of modeling that behavior to your child.
So if this is something that you're not born with, this is not a genetic maladaptive formation.
No.
And it might not even be a maladaptive response given the environment that you're living in. If you're living in a traumatic environment,
right,
learning, if you will, how to be emotionally disconnected from it might be the only way that you feel like you can survive it. Does that make sense?
A survival tactic, definitely, right? If I'm vulnerable, that's not going to work for me, right? If I discuss my feelings, maybe I'm shunned, maybe it's minimalized,
right.
Maybe it's avoidant. So,
So is this emotional blindness? Is this something that it's experienced more across genders, or is this more likely to be one gender or the other? Tell me about that.
So, I mean, I can speak for the United States, right? And I can say that with men, it can probably be seen more because of the culture around men sharing emotions. It's not really celebrated. It's kind of looked down upon sometimes as looking as weak. So I would say definitely with men. Obviously, it can happen with any individual, as I stated before, people who have depression, anxiety, trauma history, and neurodivergence as well.
So again, not just men, possibly more likely men, for the reasons you just described. As we know, men have long been sort of guided towards not feeling but fixing.
Right, being logical.
Yeah, and logic is often illogical, but that's a whole other conversation. We're not.
Yes.
Or the woman who has learned how to disconnect from her emotional awareness, which I think is another way to describe what we're talking about.
Yes.
It could be really scary. Well, I say women, but actually anyone who's learned how to disconnect from their emotional selves. The notion of learning how to connect, well, who's going to want to do that? Then you start to feel all this stuff that you don't really want to feel.
Yeah. And the reality of it, usually we feel worse before we feel better when we start to uncover those feelings because we were so avoidant before. But there's hope, right? I really, as a trauma-informed therapist, I really try to be real with my clients. I've also done my own trauma therapy as well, so I can speak from experience that, yeah, when you don't talk about or discuss or identify those feelings, it can feel very raw, but there is hope after you do that, and then you have the skills. So again, really quickly, some kind of somatic type of things, somatic therapies that you can do with individuals who don't have that connection with their body and mind. Once they do, they just feel so freeing. You feel free, you have more control over yourself. And really, that's what I hope with people with alexithymia, that when they do seek help, whether they do it themselves or seek therapy, that they get that connection and kind of see how it's empowering.
You just use another term I'm going to ask you to explain in a bit more detail.
Yes.
Somatic therapy. What is that?
Yes. So there's many different kinds, and I'm not a somatic therapist. I want to just say that, but a lot of the different kind of like body scanning, I don't know if this is somatic, but progressive muscle relaxation, just kind of these techniques where you're kind of going through your body and kind of saying what hurts, what feels good, what doesn't. Just being more mindful. Really, mindfulness is really what it's about. Mindfulness in the body.
And again, mindfulness is your ability to connect with yourself.
Yes.
Hopefully without judgment, because we all know how to judge ourselves, and we typically judge ourselves pretty harshly. You use the term trauma informed, and nowadays we hear trauma informed all over the place.
Right.
I was talking to a client the other day who's getting ready to, move into some legal matters. Please make sure you find a trauma informed counselor, a trauma informed lawyer,
right,
to help you with this, or a trauma informed financial expert to help you. Does that make sense?
All right. Well, my opinion, my professional opinion, yeah, it's used a lot. And trauma informed means that I have, took time to do some trainings and an understanding of what that means. And basically, I'll just say trauma informed means I'm just putting the client first and what they need, and equipping them with skills so that when they are triggered out in the world, they know how to handle it. I'll just kind of say it like that, and just with a lot of grace and a lot of care for these individuals who've gone through a lot and have developed things like alexithymia, right, to kind of be able to survive in the world. And I try to just give them a lot of grace, like what you've been using has been working for you, but I can kind of give you these other things that might work a little better.
But isn't that a wonderful way to be able to think about yourself, that this thing that maybe you're being accused of being bad at, quote unquote,
Mm-hmm.
bad at,
Yeah.
well, maybe it's not a skill set that you have right now.
Right.
But maybe you got to this place because this was part of your survival. This
Exactly.
was part of how you learned to be.
Right.
And I think just even that thought is so much more freeing and allows you to be more open with yourself and
Right.
with others. So let me play devil's advocate for a second.
Mhm.
I'm in a relationship with somebody who wouldn't know an emotion if it hit him upside down the head and rolled him down
Yes.
What do I do?
Well, grace, having grace with them, and helping them with, hey, sometimes you can kind of say, are you feeling upset about what we talked about today? Are you feeling angry? And then let them correct you. No, actually, no, I'm not feeling angry. Maybe I'm a little annoyed. Okay, kind of helping them, maybe giving them some of the vocabulary. You are the model. So if you're the one in the relationship who knows how to identify their emotions, you can kind of model what you want that to look like.
So don't necessarily assume this is a lost cause. This person
Yeah.
is just being mean, withholding, whatever. I can say some things and we can think about some things. And maybe that's the time to reach out for professional help.
Right. Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So, speaking of reaching out for professional help, how
Awesome.
do people know? How do people learn more about you, about your practice, about alexithymia? Where do people go?
Sure. So my website is a journeytohealingcounseling.com. And you can go on there. I actually created a blog for today, Men with Alexithymia. So if you go to blogs at the top, you'll see the blog. Also, I have worksheets on CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, that kind of goes through the thoughts, emotions, and reframing. So that's also on my website. If you go to at the top, I think it's services and professional development, and then you'll see worksheets. My email is info@ajourneytohealingcounseling.com. You want to talk about this more, or any questions about it? If you're in Connecticut or Florida and want to seek therapy for this or anything else, you can email info@ajourneytohealingcounseling.com or the website.
So lots of options to learn more, to be in touch with you, to learn
Yes.
more about the things that we've been talking about in general.
Yes.
I have to thank you for spending time with us today. I really appreciate the blog you've written now. I'm going to have to go and check it out.
Yeah,
So
of course. Thank you.
you just added to my to-do list. Thank you so much.
Of course.
But seriously, I do thank you so much for joining us today. Tahara DeBarrows, licensed marriage family therapist, excuse me.
Yes, my pleasure.
And again, just thank you for being here and thank you for sharing your expertise.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. This has been fun.
Excellent. Fun. And folks, thank you for joining us today on this edition of M.E.S.H. If you've heard something, and I think you probably have, if you've heard something that is of importance or note to you, please share this conversation with somebody you care about. I will be here next week. I'm here every Wednesday with a new program for you to think about, to broaden your, what's my word? What's the word I'm looking at? To broaden your concept of ways to conceptualize what's going on in your life. So hopefully I'll see you next week. Take care.